talk a little bit about your expectations and responsibilities as a supervisor, what the hiring process looks like, how to assess your student successes, and finally how to monitor their earnings so you can make sure that we're not overspending those awards and running into a situation where they're over-earning. So what are your responsibilities and expectations as a supervisor? We expect that you're mentoring and guiding your student employees through the employment responsibilities and tasks. We expect that you administer and communicate trained and work study policies to your staff as appropriate. We expect that you communicate between the financial aid office and student employees. We expect that you're tracking their earnings. We expect that you're interviewing, hiring, and terminating students as needed. We're expecting that you're training the students to be effective members of your team, and then we're relaying those expectations such as daily tasks and dress code as appropriate. We're also expecting that you certify and approve the hours that they've worked for each student so that they can get paid for all the hard work that they've put in. So what does the hiring process look like for you to get these amazingly wonderful students? So at this point, a lot of you have already posted your positions on the intranet, but we'll take a look at that form in a minute for those who may not have. You're going to then participate in the supervisor training, which is what you're doing by participating right now. Once your positions are out on the intranet, Human Resources actually posts those to the website so that students can apply right through Open Hire, so just like you or I applied for our positions. You're then going to review applicants in Open Hire and select the candidates you'd like to interview. You're going to perform reference checks on the candidates that you'd like to potentially bring back. Human Resources does require that references are checked on all candidates. Once you've found that amazing candidate, you're going to submit the online hiring form that we've talked a little bit about briefly, but we'll take a look at here in a minute. And that's going to be a signal for the financial aid office to start looking at that student's eligibility and kind of make sure they're still eligible to participate in the program. That will also then get forwarded to Human Resources for them to start the onboarding and background check process. According to Human Resources, this is where the biggest time frame and potential bottleneck can occur, because all of this information is being sent to their CCCS email. So if they're not accustomed to checking that on a regular basis, please be sure to have them do that so that they're not missing out on this information. Once all of that comes back, the students are loaded into Red Carpet for a few additional Human Resources documents that need to be completed. The student does need to complete their I-9 with Human Resources, but everything else can be done online. But just make sure they know they do have to do that piece in person. Once all of that's complete with Human Resources, they will notify financial aid and will request the hourly appointment form to get that student ready to work. And then financial aid will complete the hourly appointment form, submit it to Human Resources, let the student and the supervisor know that they're ready to work, and give you a start date and award amount. And then the student can begin working, which is kind of exciting because then you have these great new team members, right? So we talked a little bit about posting these opportunities. This gets a little bit tiny on the screen, but please by all means follow that link and check it out on the intranet itself. This is for posting opportunities throughout the year, particularly this time of year is the heaviest traffic. We do need to have new position descriptions on file annually. This is also a good opportunity to, kind of take stock of what do we need to be doing, do we have the correct supervisor information out there, but it's also helpful to just kind of make sure we can clean things out and get rid of things we may not necessarily need anymore. So again, once you've found that rockstar student that you're going to hire, you're going to submit this online hiring form. It asks for some pretty standard information in terms of student ID number, student name, student CCCS email, and just make sure you're filling out all of those fields as you go through. There is no submit button on this form. There's no submit button on any of these forms. There is a button that says save. That acts as the submit button though, so that will accomplish the same goal, and then that notification will be sent to financial aid for us to start that process. So you have your students with you, and let's say at the end of the first term, you want to evaluate their progress and make sure that the learning is continuing, right? Because just because they're not necessarily in a classroom, they're still learning stuff while they're at work, and we want to make sure that that feedback loop is being closed whenever possible. So I find it helpful to sit down with my students at least once a semester to just kind of check in and see how things are going and have a discussion about what's working, what's not, and what do we need to correct moving forward. There is a sample performance evaluation form on the intranet. If that works for you, great. If not, and there's some other method that you think works better, by all means use whatever's going to work best for you and your students, but just make sure that that conversation is happening, because the students can't necessarily grow and progress as future professionals if they're not getting that feedback moving forward. So we just want to make sure that they're getting that feedback in some fashion. And finally, if you, after that evaluation, you decide that they're amazing and they need a raise because they've been doing so much amazing work, you're going to complete what's known as a change to work study status form. Again, that is on the intranet. We do ask that there's some supporting information relevant to the raise request so that we're providing that documentation should auditors come in and ask why that is being requested. Typically, again, this should happen after there's been some sort of formal evaluation process, so that in general these should probably not be happening more than once a term. But if, again, this is going to be on a case-by-case basis as your students earn those additional accolades. So your students can actually see how much of their work study award they've been using. There is a Excel worksheet that'll be out on the intranet and up on D2L as well for those that find that helpful as kind of a cross-reference. But students can see this information on eWealth, and I would highly encourage them to take a look at this, because this will be as relevant or as recent as the most recent paycheck they've received. So they can view the remaining award by logging into eWealth. It's going to be on their Payments and Financial Aid tab within the Work Study section. The first section is going to say your work study balance. The second thing is going to tell them how much was total authorized, and then how much of it they've earned, and then the remaining work study balance. Again, it's going to be as recent as the most recent paycheck they've received. So in general, there's going to be about a 2-week lag. So they're going to want to add in whatever they may have submitted for that last payroll.